You're listening to The Cultured Bumpkin, a literature podcast with Jake Phillips, where we present audiobook quality readings of the classics for your enjoyment. Thank you for stopping by. And remember, just because you're a bumpkin doesn't mean you can't be cultured. Well, hello everyone. Today I have a very special guest live in the studio, Mr. Andy Harvey. Say hello, Andy.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me, Jake.
Absolutely. It truly is a pleasure. Andy and I met almost 3 years ago doing an audio drama called The Hidden Hand for a Lamplighter theater up in, I guess it was Mount Morris, upstate New York.
Yeah.
And, we became very fast friends. We roomed together in an old Victorian home while we were there on site. It was super cool. And then, we've just kept in touch and keep in touch with each other's career. Andy is a professional stage actor and voice actor. He's just an incredible talent, and he will be gracing us with some Mark Twain. We're going to double team a Mark Twain short story, and I think that'll be fun. But before that, let's get to know Andy. So, Andy, thank you very much once again. I love you. You're wonderful. Where are you from?
I'm from Beckley, West Virginia, born and raised, and I've lived all over, but I'm currently residing in West Virginia still.
Very nice. Yeah. So you, how often would you say that you perform each year?
I do about, I'd say on average about 5 or 6 shows a year, and in between and during, I'm working on voiceovers for various companies and individuals across the globe.
Nice. How many states would you say you've been in? How many people would you say you've been in front of live?
I have performed for millions of people in 25 states. That's my stat line. I'm a sports guy, so stats are important to me.
That's incredible. Growing up, what would you say some of the things were that sort of pointed you towards, got you interested in the performing arts? You're a big manly guy. You got big muscles. You got a big beard. What is a guy like you doing in theater?
Well, it all started with a love of voices. I loved animation. I loved cartoons. I loved Adventures in Odyssey was a big part of me growing up. And I loved voices and voice acting before I even knew acting really was a profession. I declared an acting major before I'd ever stepped on stage in college, and I figured I'd know pretty quickly if that was something that I was going to do for a living. And in my first acting class, I realized, yep, this is for me. And I really haven't looked back too much since.
That's awesome. Well, it really shows up in your work.
Oh, thank you.
I'm a big fan. I'm not just like a friend, I'm also a huge fan. So having Andy here is great. He's been visiting for a couple days, and it's really just been wonderful. I love the creative inspiration I get from hanging out with you. It's great.
Oh, go on.
I'll give you 30 minutes to stop there. What was I going to say? What are some things that you've been in as far as a character or whatever?
Well, as far as on stage go, I've played Jean Valjean in Les Miserables. That's a very high profile, wonderful piece. I've done a lot of Disney musicals. I've done a lot of plays, and as far as voice acting goes, I've done commercials for companies like Honda. Four Roses, bourbon, a number of different things. I do a lot of voices for phone games, different video games and things like that. It's a wild career, and I never know checking my email where the next company's going to be from.
That's awesome. You mentioned Disney. What Disney characters have you played that people would know?
Let's see. I've off the top of my head, I've played the Beast in Beauty and the Beast. I've played Gaston in Beauty and the Beast. I've played Cogsworth in Beauty and the Beast. I've played Shrek twice. I'm going to play it. That's not Disney, obviously, but that kind of realm. I'm about to play Shrek for a third time, and That might be it as far as that kind of thing goes so far. But when it comes to musical theater, those are the moneymakers. Those kinds of shows are you can put them at any slot in your season and they will fill up. That and things like Annie, which I've also played Daddy Warbucks in.
You've also played one of my favorite characters, Ebenezer Scrooge, a
Yes.
time or two, haven't you?
Yes. Thanks for reminding me. Didn't even think of it. I've played Scrooge 4 times, I think. It could be 5. I'd have to go through it. I've toured the country as Scrooge many times, and I've played it in sit-downs in different states. And, boy, that's one of my favorites. That Dickens is something that I've always loved. I was homeschooled, and I read a lot of Dickens growing up, and I was kind of obsessed with Jacob Marley, and I got to play Jacob Marley in Christmas Carol, and that opened me up to the Christmas Carol world, and then thusly kind of moved on to Scrooge, and I've never looked back. I think that Dickens, and Dickens on stage especially, will never go out of style.
That's awesome. I'm a big Dickens fan myself, and I love that. I love the story. I love everything about it. And it is a bucket list item of mine to see you as Scrooge one of these days. I know you're not booked at the moment, but I'm sure that it will come around again.
It's one of those things that's always going to be done. So I'm hoping it's right around the corner for me.
When it does, I would like to be on the front row with pennants that say Andy go and on the front. It'll be great.
Too kind.
So, okay, so this story we're going to get into today is called A Telephonic Conversation by Mark Twain. He's kind of given the differences in the way men and women talk on the telephone. Now, obviously, this is tongue-in-cheek. Do not take this seriously. Do not be offended. I hope no one will be offended just because, it's dated, whatever. So, if you don't agree with it, it's okay. He's been dead a long time, and he couldn't argue with you. This was his funny take, trying to make you laugh, not to offend you. So we're going to dive right in with A Telephonic Conversation by Mark Twain. And we're going to duet this one. Consider that a conversation by telephone, when you're simply sitting by and not taking any part in that conversation, is one of the solemnest curiosities of modern life. Yesterday, I was writing a deep article on a sublime philosophical subject when such a conversation was going on in the room. I noticed that one can always write best when somebody is talking through a telephone close by. Well, the thing began in this way. A member of our household came in and asked me to have our house put into communication with Mr. Bagley's downtown. I have observed in many cities that the sex always shrink from calling up the central office themselves. I don't know why, but they do. So I touched the bell, and this talk ensued. Central office. Hello?
Is it the central office?
Of course it is. What do you want?
Will you switch me on to the Bagleys, please?
All right, just keep your ear to the telephone. Then I heard kaloop, kaloop, kloop, 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 kloop. Then a horrible gritting of teeth, and finally a piping female voice.
Yes? Did you wish to speak to me?
Without answering, I handed the telephone to the applicant and sat down. Then followed that queerest of all the queer things in this world, a conversation with only one end of it. You hear questions asked, you don't hear the answer. You hear invitations given. You hear no thanks in return. You have listening pauses of dead silence followed by apparently irrelevant and unjustifiable exclamations of glad surprise or sorrow or dismay. You can't make head or tail of the talk because you never hear anything that the person at the other end of the wire says. Well, I heard the following remarkable series of observations, all from the one tongue and all shouted, for you can't ever persuade the sex to speak gently into a telephone.
Yes? Why, how did that happen?
Pause.
What did you say?
Pause.
Oh, no, I don't think it was.
Pause.
No. Oh, no, I didn't mean that. I meant put it in while it's still boiling. Think it's better to baste it on with the Valenciennes or bombazine or something of that sort. It gives it such an air and attracts so much noise.
Pause.
It's 49th Deuteronomy, 64th to the 97th inclusive. I think we all ought to read it often.
Pause.
Perhaps so. Oh, B flat. Dear me, I thought you said it was the cat.
Pause.
Since when?
Pause.
Why, I never heard of it.
Pause.
You astound me. It seems utterly impossible.
Pause.
Who did?
Pause.
Goodness gracious.
Pause.
Well, what is this world coming to? Was it right in church?
Pause.
And was her mother there?
Pause.
Why, Mrs. Bagley, I should have died of humiliation. What did they do?
Long pause.
I can't be perfectly sure because I haven't the notes by me, but I think it goes something like this. Tiroli-lo-lo-lo-lo-li-lo-lo, oh, tolly-lo-lo-li-li-li-li, I do. And then repeat, you know.
Pause.
Yes, I think it is very sweet and very solemn and impressive if you get the Antonino and the pianissimo right.
Pause.
Oh, gumdrops, but I never allow them to eat striped candy. And of course they can't, till they get the teeth anyway.
Pause.
What?
Pause.
Oh, no, not in the least. Go right on. He's here writing. It doesn't bother him.
Pause.
Very well.
Pause.
Visitors?
Pause.
No, we never use butter on 'em.
Pause.
Yes, that's a very good way, but all the cookbooks say they are very unhealthy when they are out of season, and he doesn't like 'em anyway, specially canned.
Pause.
Oh, I think that is too high for them. We have never paid over 50 cents a bunch.
Pause.
Must you go? Well, goodbye.
Pause.
Yes, I think so. Goodbye.
Pause.
4 o'clock then. I'll be ready. Goodbye.
Pause.
Thank you ever so much. Goodbye.
Pause.
Oh, not at all. Just as fresh. Which? Oh, I'm glad to hear you say that. Goodbye.
Hangs up the telephone and says,
Oh, it does tie a person's arms so.
a man delivers a single brutal goodbye, and that's the end of it. Not so with the gentle sex. I say it in their praise. They cannot abide abruptness. You've been listening to The Cultured Bumpkin, a literature podcast with Jake Phillips. Thank you very much for listening. I really do appreciate it. If you enjoyed this, would you mind going and subscribing and leaving a nice review on whatever podcast platform you heard this on? I would really appreciate it. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you next time.